welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing a discussion with you that I had recently with a few friends that I have done videos with in the past couple of years. As you guys know, I've had a lot of victims' family members on my channel, and some of them have gotten obviously a lot of positive feedback, right? That's the internet in general. 95% of it's positive, but you know, there's that percentage that can be really draining and negative. And all of these people have experienced the positive and so much support from so many of you guys. But the people that I've invited on to speak today have also experienced a lot of the negative comments and a lot of the speculation, judgment on their family members or on them. And so I wanted to give them a platform today to discuss what that's been like. What is it really like to be on the other side of true crime? What is it like to receive comments like that? And what is it like when you get supportive comments? I would love for all of you watching today to get something out of this and maybe learn how you can become an even more active true crime viewer, because when people go the extra mile when watching this type of content and sign petitions, make calls, support the family, or even just leave a kind comment, it really goes further than anyone realizes. I just want people to realize that for the people in these cases, it doesn't just end when the content is shut off, whether that's a podcast or a video. For them, they're living this every single day, and we still need to listen to them after we've already heard their cases. So if you stick around and watch this discussion today, thank you, I appreciate you, and let's go ahead and roll it. So everyone I have invited here today has been featured on my channel at some point over the last, Sarah, you were first actually to be featured on my channel. What was that? What year was that?
That was 2018.
Wow. Okay. So it's been a couple years. So we're definitely due to do something else in the future. But over the years, all of you have experienced what it's like to go live on my platform. Everyone's video is linked below. That'll be the first thing below for all of these cases. If you have missed one of these over the years and you want to learn more about any of the cases, a lot of you have done work with other podcasts, other YouTubers, and you know what it's like to have content go live, and then all of a sudden, here comes the flood of people, here comes the opinions, the overwhelming support, but also, it can just be a lot. And so I wanted to do this live stream today to kind of talk more about what that can be like to be on the other side of the camera, of the story, and what it can be like to view comments and, what you find to be helpful, what you find to be not helpful, just so that people can learn going forward how to be a better true crime viewer. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, but I hope that we could start out with just you guys introducing yourselves. Maybe we can go around just by our little boxes, our little squares, and feel free to, talk about the case you're representing, who you're fighting for, and any other platforms that you have, or anything you want to highlight right now, a specific article, a petition, a link, or anything like that. Now would be a good time to do it before we get into everything. So Eric, do you want to start first?
Sure. I'm Eric Carter-Landin, and I am here to advocate for my baby brother, Jacob. Justice for Jacob. Yes. Jacob died 34 years ago, and his killer has never been prosecuted, never been charged, has been able to live his entire life for the last 34 years as if nothing happened.
All right, Amanda.
My name's Amanda Shirley, and I am fighting for justice for my little brother, DJ, who was shot and killed in October of 2016. And basically, same thing. The murderer has gotten away with it. They know who did it, and they refuse to do anything about it. We did actually get the manner of death changed last year from suicide to undetermined. So we are still working with the DA. He's looking over the case, and we're just waiting to see where that goes. We can always use more signatures on DJ's petition. It's been up for almost 4 years now, and it's not even hit 40,000 signatures yet. So it's been viewed over 300,000 times, and it's not even hit 40,000 signatures yet. So we have a new DA, so it would be something to present to him that lets him see, hey, all these people know that this is what happened, so.
Yeah, some big steps recently you guys have taken this year that hopefully end up really making a difference.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah, You deserve
I'm
it.
tired.
Amanda, you're awesome.
I'm tired.
I know. That's okay. I don't want to blame you. I mean, I would be too. I'm sure all of you are tired.
Well, and that's like, Jacob, 34 years. I could not imagine. Sarah's sister, since 2001, I couldn't imagine. And so many, 30, 40 years, I can't. It's unbelievable. How can you do that to families, especially when you know that the person that did it, and it's ridiculous. There's no sense in putting families through even more heartache and suffering and pain, all because you don't want to do your job.
So irritating. Yeah, Sarah, do you want to take it from there?
Sure. Hi, my name is Sarah Turney. I fought for my missing sister, Alyssa Turney, for many, many years. And, I was fortunate enough to have a prosecution. There is currently a trial going on, so I can't speak much about Alyssa, but I am obviously very familiar with these struggles. So yeah, I fought for her for a very long time. I'm still kind of fighting for her in a sense, but I have moved on to advocating for other cases. I'm obviously very passionate about this subject. So I do now host the Voices for Justice podcast, which did cover Alyssa's case and now covers other cases in need of justice. So I'm just super passionate about this topic and want to help as many people as possible after all of the insanity that I went through.
Yeah, you've done an incredible job. And what has it been like making that shift real fast before we move on to Allison? Covering cases now and having your own podcast. What has that been like for you?
It's been amazing. It was amazing to be able to control more of the narrative of my sister's story. I mean, the case documents kind of tell the story itself, but I was able to kind of pick and choose what I thought was important. So that was amazing. But, going on to help other cases is beyond fulfilling. It is the most fulfilling job I've ever had in my entire life. And I worked with kids in foster care. I worked for a nonprofit. I had very, very fulfilling jobs. But being able to help these families one-on-one and raise money for them and get things like billboards is just, I can't explain how amazing it feels. It's been really, honestly therapeutic for me too, to kind of pay everything forward. So I can't imagine doing anything else with my life at this point.
Yeah, I'm sure it's been very healing and part of your, like you said, a therapeutic thing for you. That's amazing. And Eric, you've been doing something very similar. Do you want to talk about your podcast real fast?
Sure. Yeah, I forgot to.
Yeah.
So my podcast is True Consequences, right there. True crime stories, but with an empathetic lens, because I get it. I know what it's like to fight for justice. But my show is specifically focused on New Mexico. I'm really trying to make an impact in my backyard, trying to help people that live where I live and that are experiencing struggles with justice.
Yeah, that's huge. I love what you've done with that. That's so cool. Okay, Allison.
My name is Allison. I am here on behalf of Kaya Taylor. She's been my best friend for 22 of 29 years. We call each other sister, basically. Mm-hmm. We were raised under the same roof. Even as adults, sisters. We lived together. Yeah, like twins. We always joke that we have like twin telepathy ever since we were, 7 years old. So she's been missing a little over a year. We just came by the 1 year mark in February 6th. Kaya's story is a little interesting and a little complex. I don't think she would have had it any other way either, which is ironic. So her car was found on abandoned train tracks. Car was found running, the keys in the ignition, her phone, ID, everything there. And the police did not do a report. They didn't run the tag. They didn't do anything. They just put her stuff in the car, moved it off the train tracks, locked it, and it sat there for several days until I was able to do a police report the following Monday. So that was a Thursday. And the following Monday is when we actually did the police report, and that's when the ball started rolling. So unfortunately, there hasn't been any updates. There's no leads. It's considered a cold case. Even though it's only been a year, they literally have nothing. Since doing the video with you, Kendall, we have put out a little bit more information, particularly the name of people that were involved that last saw her last text messages, which were very concerning.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit more information out there that I think people really wanted, but we weren't able to talk about that at that time. But it just would have came to a head like we have to release it. I mean,
I'm so glad you guys did, because once you see
Yeah.
those text messages, it really puts it all into perspective for you and clears up a lot of things. So yeah, we'll put links to that. And, you know, hopefully you can come out and come on the podcast soon and kind of give more updates, and we can go over all of that, all the things we weren't able to say back in September. Yeah.
Facebook, which is, you know, Finding Kaya. And then we also have a family discussion Facebook too. So people can join that, and it's run by us, the family, where people can talk about their theories and sort of run the information through. So that's been really great.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, I'll give you the link so you can add it.
Okay, perfect. That's awesome. And Rae?
I'm Rae Andreacchio, and my family and I have been fighting for justice for my son Christian since, well, for the last 7 years. He was killed February 26th of 2014. And, you know, we've had, as Kendall realized when she came down here, that had a lot of politics being played in Christian's case and everything. But we have recently had a little bit of movement forward in that actually Wednesday there's going to be a hearing about a special prosecutor being appointed. Not real hopeful because of how things tend to go here, but we'll see. And we actually just 2 days ago, Christian's law was signed by the governor, and that protects autopsy photos from being released and put on social media in Mississippi. Anyway, Christian's autopsy photos was released by the Attorney General's office to, I guess, the other side, as we refer to them, and they posted them on Reddit and Facebook and shared them and went to sporting betting sites because there would be more traffic there, and put links to the pictures. Now it's a felony with a jail time and a $10,000 fine if anyone does that, again, in Mississippi. So we're very proud of that.
That's huge. That's a huge accomplishment. Yeah. Cheers to you. That's amazing. And I can't believe something like that wasn't already in place. And I think that's most people's reactions to things like that is, why are these things not already just, you know, something that we have already? It just doesn't make any sense. No one should have.
The first year, yeah, it took me 2 years. The first year, that's what I ran into, is all the lawmakers, all the, you know, the legislatures were like, well, we already have this. But what they had was protecting open cases. Once the case was closed, everything was fair game. And so now it protects it indefinitely.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. It's a huge accomplishment. And Christian would just be so proud of you guys. You've just worked so hard. All of you have worked so hard. It's just beyond impressive what you guys have done to raise awareness for, you know, your cases. Rae, is there anything real fast before we move on that you wanted to promote as far as the podcast, or do you want to send people to Culpable, or just?
Well, I mean, you know, yeah, Culpable, if they want to learn more about Christian's case, more of an in-depth, since it's you know, pretty lengthy. Of course, you did an amazing job, and I get more member requests from every day. I still, even a year later, I get member requests from your documentary. I call it a documentary. I think you call it a blogumentary. And of course, we have Justice for Christian, our Facebook support group. And really, that's about it right now.
That's awesome. Today, I guess I just want to now open the floor to take this wherever you guys want to go. You know, I brought up some topics we could kind of dive into, but is there anything that right off the bat has been on your mind that you'd like to say?
Eric's ready, I can tell.
Eric?
Well, I think Sarah and I have had these conversations by text and through social media, and it's something I've been really pushing is really the humanization of true crime, really coming at it from an empathetic and a human lens, as opposed to entertainment, as opposed to sensationalism, speculation, all the things that really make it difficult to be in this position, because you know, there's so much work that goes into advocating for your loved one, and it's hard not to take these things personal, because this is very personal. And it's easy for people to be keyboard warriors, to be trolls, when they have the anonymity to just say whatever gross thing that comes to their mind. You know, one of the comments that really bothered me that I saw recently was somebody saying that my mom left her husband at the time because he was flirting with my 14-year-old cousin. That's why she left. And so, first of all, it's not flirting; it is grooming for sexual abuse. You know, that's the same mentality of people who say things like "sex with a minor." You know, those kinds of words, they matter, they mean something, and it frames it in a different way, which almost normalizes that behavior. And so, I think that it's really important for not just viewers of true crime or listeners of true crime to be careful with what they say, but also for the people creating the content, because there are creators out there that go the other way, and that doesn't help.
Yeah, I agree. And to be honest, I made that actual same mistake in the first season of my podcast, and I did get that feedback. And I never thought about it until somebody said, like, hey, that's not the way you phrase those things. It's not sex with a minor, it's sexual abuse. And I don't know if maybe that was just in my head because it was so hard for me to admit that and say it because I was so close to the case. But, you know, just to be fair, that is something I had to learn kind of the hard way as well. So I think that, you know, there is so much opportunity for people to learn and grow, but I don't think you can do that unless you're open to it. And that's my fear, is that I think that there are so many creators that aren't open to that. I think that us as family members, you know, get this stigma that we're just emotional. We're just so emotional. We're so close to it. There's no way we could, you know, we could see past our experience. And I just wish more creators were open to listening to family members and, you know, kind of respecting the victims a little bit more.
Well, and I think that also, just like you touched kind of on this, Sarah, is that as a family member, this isn't our world. I mean, some of you have made it your world, but when you first started, this wasn't our world of being on podcasts and speaking to the public and you know, and being on television or whatever it was. And so we do say things that maybe we shouldn't have said quite that way, and everything is put under a microscope on social media, you know, as far as any little slip that you make, well then, you meant something else by it. And so it is a learning process, and then it makes you very guarded, to the point that, like, now I'm very guarded at what I say. I sit there and try to think it out, because am I going to say something that tomorrow somebody is going to use that against me, you know?
I agree with Eric on the entertainment aspect of our cases. I just feel, and I felt it deeply for a long time, ever since I've been advocating for my brother and everybody else. All these people that call themselves true crime junkies, you know, or true crime people, and even some of the people that call themselves advocates, they watch our cases, they listen, you know, they listen to our podcasts, our stories, or whatever, and it's like they just turn off a movie and walk away, and that's the end of it, you know. Or like I said in my tweet a couple of weeks ago, our stories are not, you know, stories that you sit around a campfire and talk about. It's our real life. It's our life. We live with this every day. And we're not advocating and doing this for entertainment. We're doing it to get help and support.
I was hoping you would talk more about SNL, and I didn't see it myself, what you were referring to, but
it was the Saturday Night Live skit that they did called Murder Show. And they basically made it out to be a big joke, like housewives that stay at home, and, you know, the husband's leaving for work or going to do something. He's like, what are you going to do today? And she's like, oh, I don't know, just hang around the house. And as soon as he walks out the door, they start putting on this, it's like a song. They start talking about murder shows and talking about, like in just one case particular, they're like, they found dismembered body parts. I can look at this while I'm, you know, playing a game on Xbox. You know, I mean, it's just, they made a big joke out of like murder shows, and it's not a joke. And it literally triggered me that I had to get offline for over a week. It pissed me off so bad.
I think it's also such a bigger issue than what even we can touch on today, because this is just the macro. This is just, missing people and murder crimes, but it also goes as far as romanticizing shooters, Ted Bundy. I mean, there's a whole Netflix thing, Jeffrey Dahmer. Like, it's this bigger problem than what anybody is realizing. It's this romanticization of hurting people and trauma at the end of the day. And I like what you said about Eric, what you said about like people that sort of like get into it for a hobby. I know that this term might upset a lot of people, but we like to talk about armchair detectives with our family. Like these people that just log on and they think that they know everything about these cases. And it's really hard to deal with, because I remember there was one comment in particular on the Kendall video where somebody mentioned that I was like looking around and I had fake tears, but like on the other end of that, they didn't see the 20 videos that I sent Kendall where I was like crying and like having to compose myself. And I think I might have mentioned it in one of those that I'm a trained social worker. I'm getting my master's in social work. I've worked in nonprofit as a case manager with vulnerable populations. So when this all happened to me, like, in order to protect myself, I went into like this autopilot where I had to rely completely on my training. So I picked up on little things like it had rained the weekend before, that there was a helicopter, like little things like that people thought were weird and strange and talked about at great lengths, was just me having to protect like my own psyche in that moment. But they don't see, now if I hear helicopter, I start hyperventilating, or I can't drive over train tracks without like having to hold my breath. They don't see the other side of that.
Right. And they only do get such a small glimpse, of what it's really like. Like you guys, they really can't understand what it would be like to live this every day and what the reality is like beyond, like when the cameras turn off or the recording stops, like how it really does affect you, and how maybe someone's sitting down and it's their hobby to write, one of these armchair detectives, as you said, I use that term too, trying to solve this. And then they just log off and they go about their lives and it's whatever. But these things that they've said and these assumptions they've made and speculations stay with you and will for, who knows how long, weeks, months. And it just keeps building up.
Yeah. And as far as I know, there's no guidebook as to what to do when you have a loved one that goes missing or is unfortunately murdered. So we're just doing this the best that we can. Yeah. We're not perfect, like you guys said. Like, there's nobody that's, tried to help us in that aspect, sort of guided us. It's been 100% on our own. So of course there are going to be, mix-ups and slip-ups here and there. But at the end of the day, like, we're just trying to spread awareness. But how much trauma do we have to go through spreading that awareness to make it worth it?
That I kind of have ran into is the assumption from whether it's on another Facebook page or even, like a Justice for Christian, is this assumption that you owe them an explanation. Like if they have a question, or why didn't you put this document up? You posted this document, but you didn't post that document. And, of course, like you said, we have reasons. A lot of times there's stuff going on legally, or there's strategy there. Like, I don't want to put this out now because I'm going to save it for later or whatever. And I finally got to the point where, I don't owe them any explanation. I'm not trying. They can't go and arrest the people who killed my son. They can't make a judge open a case. They can't. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So I don't really owe them. I appreciate their support and I appreciate their interest in the case, but I think that they forget. I'll get these messages through Facebook saying, well, why haven't you done this? Or or you need to do this. And it's like, I don't care if the other side is saying that I'm scared and I'm not putting this out because of this reason or that reason. I don't owe them posting this. And I don't know if y'all run into that, but I just get a lot of messages about, well, why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that? So that gets kind of frustrating after years of doing this.
I just wanted to ask you guys if you do feel that contacting directly is the best method. Is that what you guys have seen work the most, is having people contact whoever needs to be contacted directly versus signing a petition, something like that? Like, what's the difference?
I think that one thing to think about is you kind of have to hit them where it hurts, and that's in payroll. Someone has to answer that phone. That's irritating some type of secretary that will tell somebody else, and then they'll tell somebody else. And it's this chain effect that is so different than writing letters or sending a petition or sending emails, because they're so much easier to ignore. But again, where you hit them where it hurts, when it's payroll, they're going to listen a little bit more to that, at least in my experience.
Absolutely. Every case I've seen, that always helps. It helps to just annoy them. And it's kind of fun. Like, people should get on it. It's kind of fun to annoy people. So,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
if there's an
Like
opportunity.
to annoy somebody.
Yeah, right? So if there's an opportunity to do that, it always helps to take that extra step and make those calls, send the emails, because petitions, you know, signatures are great and they're helpful, but it doesn't seem to make as much of an impact as people picking up the phone or writing a letter, doing something active like that.
I think that the petition that I created last year, what it did for me was it created more awareness. And so as soon as that petition went up, the local news called me and scheduled an interview for me to be on the news. And that got the attention of the Attorney General, which resulted in a conversation between that office and my mom, which would not have happened if we wouldn't have done that. So I think that petitions do have their value, but I also think it really depends on the case and where that family is in the advocating process. You know, I wasn't ready to do that yet because I had all these other things I was working on first. Now I'm at the point where I'm ready to do it. So I think the biggest issue here is to really, first of all, like, take and respect the wishes of the family, of the people that are advocating for the case. You know, it doesn't help to go on your own and go rogue and do things because you think it's the right thing. It may not be the best thing in the interest of the case. You know, as far as people demanding things, I mean, I think I've seen Sarah posting about people demanding her to share more about her sister, even though it's in, you know, litigation right now. It's just crazy, you know, to Rae's point. We don't owe these people anything. You know, we're putting ourselves out here, we're putting our families out here, we're putting all this dirt on our lives out in front of everybody. And so that makes us extremely vulnerable and probably a little bit defensive. But that's natural, right? Because this is our lives we're talking about. This isn't just a story on the Investigation Discovery Channel.
Exactly. Well, and I broke down crying in a TikTok video because so many people were asking for updates and saying, like, you owe us updates. You're rude for not giving us updates, to the point where I was just breaking down because it's so hard for me. I appreciate all of the people that helped me get my sister's case to where it was in terms of the media so much, and not being able to share everything is hard. I don't think people get that. Like, it's not like I have to protect the case first, and if I could share everything, I absolutely would. I rely so much on that community, or at least I did when I was able to share information about my sister's story. Like, I didn't have family support. Those people who were messaging me and supporting me online were my family. So it is extremely difficult for me not to be able to share things with them. And so, you know, on top of them, you know, and it's very slight. I get very few comments like that, but it was starting to get a little aggressive. But of course, you know, the bigger you get, 1 million followers on TikTok, there's going to be people who don't agree. But I don't think people understand that it's not like we just don't want to share because we're being rude or whatever. We can't. And it hurts to not be able to share, especially when you've gained so much strength and love from that community that you can no longer share with. It's a really weird thing and really hard. And I think it's just something that people need to think about a little bit. And I get why people want updates. And I say every time I can't speak about it. Thank you so much for caring about the case. Like, I try to reiterate, like, I appreciate your interest and I'm so sorry, but I can't do it. And it's just a really weird, sordid thing that I hope people can better understand after listening to this broadcast. But at the end of the day, if you went from, you know, thinking Ted Bundy's hot to coming to one of Kendall's videos and then connecting with an advocate or connecting with a victim and sharing those stories, that's what I try to focus on, is that end result. What is happening in the very end, despite where you're coming from? Because again, it's all about learning and growing and educating people. So I think it's kind of a necessary evil, you know, something like the Saturday Night Live skit. Just like you, Amanda, when I first watched it, I was like, I don't like this. This doesn't sit well with me. But that's because that's not how I consume true crime. You know what I mean? So I get it. I think that there's room for improvement, of course, but I also understand it. And again, if they're watching murder shows and folding laundry, but they finally get to us and want to help us, I think that we kind of have to realize that we live within this world. They've always led with the perpetrator. That's kind of been the way it's been, unfortunately. But like I said, I do think that there is this wave of conscious consumerism in general, every facet of life, from what you're buying, plastics in the ocean, to what car you drive, to true crime, fortunately. So yeah, I think that we have to look at where we came from and realize, hopefully where we're going.
There's also like this other aspect of viewers that I know I've experienced, especially, with Kaya's case in specific, and I don't know if any of you guys have, but people that feel so entitled and involved to the point where they're stalking my family members, where I'm getting death threats, where like people are finding out where I work and finding out like these very intimate personal details about my life. And it's like, none of that should matter. The focus should be on Kaya, and you're pointing fingers at the wrong people. Her family, her friends, the people that truly love her, none of their life story matters. This is about Kaya, and a lot of the negativity that I have faced personally, aside from like being on Kendall's video, came from Facebook groups, from people that talk amongst DMs and play this phone game where things get jumbled up, and then all of a sudden her mom is the suspect to them, her aunt, me, her sisters. Like it doesn't make any sense to me at all when and then when we say something about it, when we try to redirect the masses into a productive way, it's, what are you guys hiding? Maybe we should look at you. If you're not willing to give us all the information, or if you're not willing to talk about it anymore, then maybe we should look at you instead. So I would almost prefer the people that, consider themselves true crime junkies, whatever, who like log on and stuff, and full clothes and do it, versus the people that try to get so involved to the point where it's like, please just back up. Like, please back up, because there's no reason why my dad should be getting death threats, why I should be getting death threats. Like, that's just over the line.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that it's important that we also do our part to shape the future of true crime. And that, I believe, is through educating people and really pointing out, what better looks like and what better sounds like. And I'm definitely committed to doing that from my platform, to really try to change the way people view true crime, the way people consume true crime. I have no problem with people being fascinated with abnormal psychology. I like weird stuff too. I'm into UFOs and all that crazy stuff because it's fascinating to me, and abnormal psychology is also fascinating. But I always try to be aware that, and I hope others will too, that you're talking about the worst day in somebody's life, and if you can just keep that in the top of your mind, you're not gonna stray away and go into the other side of it. Just remember that this is a real person. When Jacob died, that was the worst day of my life, and I'm sure you all agree that when your loved ones disappeared or passed away, it was a terrible, awful day.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right, Eric. I mean, I always say, like, I want to be the change I'd like to see in the community. It all starts with you. It's like any other cause, right? Like recycling. Like if you want people to recycle, maybe you should do it yourself. It's just that mentality of kind of leading by example is what I try to do. I of course have posts out there where I'm like, this isn't okay, right? Like that. There was a video, I think actually me, Eric, and Kendall all shared this, where it was a video comparing Chris Watts' mistress and his wife, who's hotter. And it's like, the stuff like that. Yeah, I will point out all day. But in terms of like the content I create, I want to lead by example. And like you said, Eric, I always remember this is the worst day of their lives. And when I interview people, I try to keep that in mind. And I very seldom even ask them about that day. Like Eric, Eric, we've interviewed together so many times, but I go in there and I'm like, hey, I feel like my responsibility as a content creator is to do as much research as possible so I can come to the table with that for you, so I can ask you clarifying questions. So I'm not just like, tell me about the worst day of your life. Hopefully you cry and I get views, which as someone who has interviewed for 50 plus podcasts, I can tell you that happens. You will get poked, you will get prodded, people will try to elicit a reaction from you. I have been asked to look sad and, look across the street on camera and stuff. It's just, it's, I don't think it is a ethical way to make true crime. So I think, the best that we can do is educate people and be the change we want to see.
Yeah, that's so true. And I'm sure so many people who have just done more classic true crime content, worked with ID over the years, and they have you like stand a certain way, or like you said, look out at the house and try to like evoke these emotions out of you. And I think it's all about like, looking at the way that it's been done for so long and discussing how we can change the way we look at it going forward. Because I think a lot of it has just been normalized to people. ID discovery is something they've seen on when they're at the nail salon or wherever else, or they've just watched it at home. And I think there's a level people have to almost disconnect to a sense to consume this stuff because it's so heavy and so intense. But they forget that these are real people and they're not just a distraction for you during your day to kind of entertain you, I guess you could say. It's so much more than that. I just don't think most people realize that. And that's because we've watched this content for years and years. I mean, I know I grew up watching true crime, and the way that it was is so different than the way that it is now. And it's going to forever be changing.
And it's interesting that you point that out, because I feel like people have this idea of how this works. Like, okay, somebody goes missing, call the FBI. Do X, Y, Z, but like that's not how it really works. Like, for instance, we've tried to get the FBI on our case, but the police have to invite FBI onto a case. If the police say no, it's a no. Like you can't go any further than that. And I just feel like people, and this is a great way, that we can educate people, like Sarah and Eric have said, like getting them to understand what it's really, really like to be in this situation. That it's not like Law and Order. It's not like a movie or anything. Like it's much different. It's much, much different.
All they see is what they see on the screen, the record time. They don't see the 2 or 3 days before an interview when our nerves are just so tore up because we're going to have to relive that day again. And then after the interview, the 2 or 3 days that it takes to recover from the interview because we had to relive that day, moment by moment, it's awful. We don't do this for our health, that's for sure.
I hope people realize that if you write a nasty comment to one of us, 30 seconds later, you're probably going to forget about that and move on with your life. But those can be burned into our brains forever. So I just want people to keep that in mind, that, if you feel the need to leave a nasty comment, just know that that's probably going to stick with us for a really long time, whether or not we even express that to you. Not to give trolls any type of power. But right. I just want people to kind of realize that this is forever for us. This is our real life. This isn't just something we're commenting on Reddit and laughing about and moving on. I just spoke to a class at Arizona State University about advocacy, and it's like that's the way you enter this whole space. Really, is you have social media. It's like the first thing. It's free. It's easy to use. I mean, not for everybody, right? It does there's a learning curve for sure. But it's the easiest way to enter into this community, if you will, and get your story out there. And everyone starts with 0 followers. I always want to reiterate, if somebody is thinking about joining TikTok or thinking about advocating, we all start at 0 followers. But it is the easiest way to get the content out there, to get the story out there, to get the picture out there. So I cannot overstate social media enough,
because you get in like this desperate mode. Like if just one person sees this could change the entire outcome. And that's what happened. Like I put on Kendall's notifications and I was the first comment and I liked it, and thousands of other people, liked it, and she saw it, and that then gave us 12,000 followers on our Facebook page. Like it just takes one person to see the right thing, and it can take off from there. So I definitely agree with you. Like social media, even the police, they say, what can we do? They say social media, keep posting every single day, and I think that's the strongest tool. But it's a double-edged sword, because it can also be the biggest downfall if it's not used appropriately and smartly.
Right.
Well, and I think that it is all the people who have a lot of followers. I mean, not even in true crime, but you think of all these celebrities who have 12 million followers or whatever, and you think it could take them 30 seconds to do a tweet. I think I tweeted that one time that, you could change somebody's life with a 30 seconds and probably less than 30 seconds of one tweet. That would get so much attention for that person, that case, that whatever, because they would gain so much just because, Kim Kardashian or whoever, maybe this one tweet. But I don't think that sometimes maybe they realize like how much they could help people in cases with such a little bit of their time, and it costs them nothing. So that can be very
I totally agree with that. I have DJ, was a huge Tennessee Vols fan, and I have reached out to every social media Tennessee Vols platform that there is, trying just to get them to retweet, something about DJ. I mean, he was so crazy about Tennessee Vols that he named his twins after Peyton Manning and Brad Paisley. So I have reached out to Brad Paisley. So I have tried to reach out to, Peyton Manning, and just to get them to share something, because they have such a huge following that if they was just to retweet his story, it would blow up. And it would be so much pressure put on. Yeah, just a retweet, that's all it would take.
Yeah.
But they're celebrities, and most of the time celebrities don't even handle their own personal accounts. They have people that do it for them. So the chances of getting a hold of somebody are very slim.
Yeah, it's very hard to get in touch.
Funny little story about this to show my ignorance of Twitter. Some Elon Musk. It wasn't Elon Musk. I thought it was him, but it was like some, fan club or something. But I thought it was him, and they tweeted something out about, this has just been a couple months ago, tweeted something out about, I'm looking for more members. If you tweet me, I will follow you back. I mean, I jumped on that. I was like, you could do so much with one tweet, you know what? And then they followed me, and I'm all like, Elon Musk has followed me. My son says, Mom, that's like a fan club of Elon Musk. So I was like, oh, shoot. I thought I got like the richest man in the world to retweet. I mean, whatever. So anyway.
I was wondering if we could end it off by just giving some advice to people out there who, maybe are in a similar situation to what you guys have been through and are wanting to take the next step to get that awareness, get that support, but they don't know how to use social media, or they're afraid. What would you say to someone kind of looking at diving into all of this?
Reach out to one of us. I know I'm more than willing to help someone, help them. I'm more than willing to help.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say the same thing. Get close to people that understand. Sarah and I talk quite often, and she is a rock for me. She checks in on me, and I appreciate it so much. Back at you. We understand each other. I understand all of you, honestly. Like I feel like I know you. I don't know you, but I feel like I know you because I know what it's like. And so reach out to people that you admire. I reached out to Sarah early on when I started my podcast, and I was really scared because I really looked up to her. I admired her. I thought she was amazing. And she responded. And just to have that connection to somebody that gets it, where I can say, Sarah, this is happening. It's terrible. And she's like, yes, it is terrible. And I'm sorry. And I'm here for you. That helps me so much. When my stomach is churning because I have so much anxiety from everything that's going on and putting myself out there, to have somebody that knows what it's like, it makes all the difference in the world. So, reach out to me. I'm not going to speak for everybody else, but I will be more than happy to help. And if you need help sharing your story, even if it's not a New Mexico case, I will make that work in my show somehow. So there's people out there that want to help.
Yeah, get support. Make sure that you understand your boundaries and your limits, and give yourself time. Everybody's different. Maybe you can handle, going crazy. Maybe you can handle one post a week. Start small and do what you can handle. And I also highly encourage people to check out YouTube. I promise every question you have about Twitter or making a podcast or TikTok is out there on YouTube. That's how I learned a lot of things. Is I don't know how to make a podcast. I went to YouTube and I learned how to make a podcast. I learned how to edit that way. And I think another thing that people really, it's worth your time looking into is just researching social media algorithms and how they work, because Facebook is totally different from Twitter, and it's totally different from Instagram, and it's totally different from TikTok. And if you use the same approach with all of those platforms, it's not going to work as well as if you understand the inner workings of these platforms. And again, you don't have to go talk to the CEO of YouTube. You can Google it. You can look on YouTube and say, how does TikTok even work? And find these things. And they're always changing, so it's important to stay on top of that. So know your stuff about social media, and also try to be brave. When I posted my first TikTok video, I was so embarrassed. I was like, I look like an idiot. All these people on here are so young. Like, nobody's going to pay attention to me. Nobody's going to like these videos. And I was just like, you know what? My sister would do anything for me. I can look like an idiot for her and at least give it a try. And it worked for me, thank goodness. So know your stuff, try new things, but also know your boundaries and where you're comfortable.
But I guess just to end off today, I thought maybe you guys could, if there is any last thing you'd like to say to the average true crime consumer about how they can move forward as a more active viewer, and what comments are helpful and what people should just stop doing.
Help get the word out about our cases, share them, retweet it, use the hashtags that we all use. And don't blame people. I know in DJ's case specifically, a lot of people blame my mom for DJ's death because he was texting her begging for a ride home, and she told him no. And so she has so much guilt over that because she didn't go get him. And then there's people that pointed out, on comments, they're like, well, she should have went and got him. If she would have went and got him, he would still be alive today. And so don't blame people. Don't blame the victims' families. Just don't be negative about these cases because it affects us. It stays with us. These comments, I remember the very first comment I got that was a negative comment was 5 years ago, like 2 weeks after DJ got killed. Somebody said that if I had just loved my brother just a small amount, that he would still be alive today.
Oh my God. That's so painful.
Yeah. And it's burned into my head, forever.
Yeah. And I'm sure the person who wrote that probably forgot about it and moved on.
Exactly.
I agree with Amanda. I think that, helping to spread awareness is important. I think that misdirected anger and blame doesn't help anything, doesn't help anybody, doesn't help solve the case, especially when we know who's responsible. Those things are hurtful. I get being frustrated about, especially like Jacob's case. Like, I get it. I'm frustrated by Jacob's case. I have to live with it for every day of my life. But don't misdirect that frustration towards the people who are fighting for justice. Like, that doesn't help anybody. And vote with your conscience. Like Sarah was saying, vote with your conscience, listen and consume content that is doing it the right way.
I love that, Eric. I also want to say, if anybody wants to come after Eric's mom, you can deal with me. I think I said that before to Eric. It's like the hardest thing for me seeing Jacob's story is everybody come after your mom.
I know, it's so hard.
I learned something pretty early on, which, the whole reason I have Voices for Justice, my podcast, is these calls to action at the end of each story. And early on, when Crime Junkie covered my sister's case, I remember Ashley Flowers saying, if you can take over an hour to consume this content and to listen to this sad story, you can take 10 seconds and do some type of call to action. In that case, it was a petition. She was, pushing for people to sign it. So that's my thing. If you're going to take an hour to watch Kendall's video or, consume a podcast, whatever it is, if they're asking you to do something, just take 10 seconds. If every single consumer did that, our cases would probably be in a lot different spots. It would help so much. So again, if you take the time to consume it, take that extra second and maybe, go the extra mile and help us out.
I think as simple and as cliche as it is, like,
my mom taught me the golden rule. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, you know? I don't know who mentioned it earlier, but when this happened to all of us, this was the worst day of our lives. Like, I know personally for me, like, I'm stuck on repeat on, you know, February 10th, every single day. I think February 10th. And my life doesn't move past that. Everything else around me moves past that. So when I see these comments, you know, saying like she ran off or she was pregnant or like she just didn't want to live her life anymore, like, I think we all know our loved ones more than anybody out there could, you know, fathom. I mean, I know personally, like, I know that she wouldn't have done that. So just if you want to have, you know, constructive comments, like, just be nice about it. Like, just be nice, because at the end of the day, you're going to forget about it, but that's going to stick with all of us at the end of the day. And I'm really thankful that I have a strong support system that was able to filter out those comments for me, so I didn't get the full force of them at all times. But I'm lucky. Not everybody is lucky like that. Some people, it's a one-man show, and they're doing this all by themselves, and they have to take every good with every single bad. And that comes at a toll, and it's just not fair to have to be re-traumatized over such life-altering trauma that none of us can move on from. Even if there is justice, at the end of the day, our loved one is gone. And we would rather have them here than anything. But if we're putting ourselves out there like this, at least know that we're doing it for the right reasons, and to be just constructive in a kind way about it.
And I think that I ditto to everything everybody just said, and especially what Sarah said about, you know, taking the 10 seconds, because if it's especially if it is a phone call, like we talked about earlier, we just a few weeks ago was doing kind of bombarding the DA's office here 2 weeks in a row with phone calls, and you know, and it did seem to have an impact, and it cost nothing. It took about 10 or 15 seconds to do. And it was very effective, I think. And so I think that if you know, you are a member of a Facebook support group for the family, to, you know, be active in it, make a comment here or there so that we know you're out there, that it's not just, you know, 24,000 members, but if you're not 24,000 active members, it might as well be zero, you know. So I think that's the most, you know, and I know that we said things about Armchair Detectives, but I will have to say that crowdsourcing has really helped in our case. And if not even just from a legal standpoint, but just to be able to eliminate some possibilities, whether it's a type of gun or a bullet or whatever. And so many people have information that they'll just Facebook message you and say, okay, well, my dad is a big gun enthusiast and I've asked him this. At least it backs up, sometimes validates some of what you're thinking, you know, and kind of encourages you.
That's a good point. Do you guys have any final thoughts that you want to add before we wrap up today?
Just that I love doing stuff like this, and I am happy to have any type of dialogue about ethics and true crime or anything along those lines at any time. And also, thank you, Kendall.
Of course. Thank you for coming on. Thank you all for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Kendall.
Yeah. And if there are any call to actions before we leave, if you guys want to say, I mean, I'm going to have a bunch of information for each case linked below with what they're working on right now, what can be done right now. If you guys want to be an active viewer at this moment, there'll be literally information in the description box. You can start right now.
Well, and we can always use phone calls to the Mississippi Attorney General's office and the District Attorney's office and District 10 in Mississippi, just because we're kind of at a critical point in Christian's case, and just pushing for a special prosecutor to be appointed.
Sarah and Allison, do you guys have anything specific before you go, or your shows?
You go ahead,
I
Allison.
would just say right now, we're still sort of at a standstill. I think things are going to be changing very shortly. I have a really big feeling that they will, as far as the direction that we go. So I would just stay on top of our Facebook page, which is Finding Kaya. But the bigger picture, I would just say, is just to check in on your loved ones, especially women that are victims of domestic violence or suffer from addictions of any sort. I definitely don't want my sister's disappearance to be in vain. And if there's a bigger lesson to be learned out there, I would want it to, and I know she would want it, to be just check on those people, especially, you know, those women and those girls that are in those vulnerable situations.
That's great.
Yeah. For mine, there's nothing to do for my sister. I want to say thank you to everyone that did help in those efforts. But of course, I do now feature other cases in need of justice over on Voices for Justice, my podcast. So check it out. Help them out. I've already covered, Jacob's case on there, and I have a list that is longer than the rest of my life to cover the rest of these cases. So they will be including DJ's case as well, which me and Amanda have talked about for so long. But yeah, just help other cases. I would love that. Thank you.
You've done so great, Sarah. It's so cool to see just how much you've grown just in the past couple of years since we first met. It's wild, honestly. So proud of all of you guys. I'm honored to have you here on the channel today. Thank you for joining. This was a great discussion. Hopefully we can do something else similar to this in the future. Always happy to put you guys on my platforms and help in any way that we can. And I hope that this brings in a little bit of traction for you guys as far as getting those numbers up, getting those calls in, and making some progress.